How's it going, YouTube? Come on, today with another video. And today, guys, what to bring to you is a big discussion video. Honestly, this format has been quite the ride. This is probably one of the longest formats I've been a part of, and there's so many different cards in it right now that are really interesting and some that really probably should be banned. I'm here to talk about that with Crushcards. Say hello, introduce yourself to the channel for everyone who might not know you.
Oh my god, hello team! We're Crushcards. In case you didn't know, I'm Logan.
I'm Brian.
And we're Crushcards. That's about it. Hi, if you don't know who we are, we're the crazy alpaca people that play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's fun. Hi, love you.
Currently, they're on a subathon. Any big plans for that?
Trying
All the plans.
Trying to be social, trying to do as many collabs as possible, make it a fun time for everybody, and make it through the weekend. This is our first doing it. We're really just winging it, and hopefully we survive.
We're trying to do things that like we enjoy, things that chat enjoys, but like I'm really pumped for doing like building Legos. I can't really wait to do that.
Yeah,
playing like other games that aren't Yu-Gi-Oh! So
yeah,
it's
playing
really
video
fun.
games. But yeah, so I don't know when this is going up, but hopefully it was successful whenever this goes up. Hope we made it.
Yeah, I definitely understand playing other things that aren't Yu-Gi-Oh! I recently got into Digimon for my days that I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's just really fun to be able to switch things up once in a while because, you know, burnout is a very real thing when it comes to the game.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
Yeah, and that's something that I get asked about a lot too. It's, you know, as being a content creator, there's so many different opportunities to play the game, and you're going to like 3 or 4 locals a week potentially. You're going to all these big tournaments. Like, how do you not get burnt out? And I feel like a lot of it's just friends. Like, the second that you realize that most events you go to are for friends more than just like playing.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my god.
100%.
The social factor is so important. Like, honestly, I feel like I would not have nearly any fun at any Yu-Gi-Oh! Event if it weren't for the people that I interacted with the whole time.
The best part of every event isn't the event itself, but it's going out to eat afterwards with everyone.
Yeah, and just like, you know, going dinosaur mini golfing, all that fun stuff. Like, you know, it's the friendship.
We're all playing Dinosaur Adventure coming to a YCS near you.
Yeah, literally.
So that was a wonderful time too. If anyone hasn't heard about that or seen on my community tab, there's a big picture. It's like Milano, Gage, Dan, Crushcards, all of us just all hanging out. It was a really great weekend. It was a fun time.
It was super fun.
Super fun.
So getting into the discussion today, there's going to be quite a few things that we have to talk about. So if you haven't already checked my sponsors, I'm an Imperium Duelist to Dragon Shield or Gem. Definitely go down in the description below. Check them all out. I'll also leave Crushcards channel down there as well. Definitely go ahead, follow them, sub to them, and then also go to their subathon and give them a sub there as well.
Aw, thanks,
Thanks, bud.
Absolutely. So I do have
you all the way that all those sponsors, they're incredible.
Yes,
they're very great sponsors.
Great. Love
very
that
great
for
sponsors.
you. That is amazing.
It's you know, it's such a crazy experience, like the whole way that things have went so far, and I'm just really glad to be at the position that I am now. So it's great.
Always.
I do have a very fun question for both of you because I feel like this is something that a lot of people have different takes on. So I want to hear what your takes are. Finish this sentence for me, all right? A format is always playable as long as.
Oh.
I think this is where you're gonna see the dichotomy between her and I.
Yeah.
I already know my answer, but I'll let you go first.
I want to go first. I'm not really sure on my answer yet. Ooh. I feel like you should go first because I feel like your answer is kind of gonna determine if I feel safe with mine.
I'm always an optimist, so like I think my answer is a format is always playable when you are open-minded, when you are creative, and when you are able to go with the flow. Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of those games, especially as we've seen over the course of the last like 3-4 weeks, like the format has literally changed every single weekend.
It has.
Every event, there's been the best deck has changed, even though it may be a variation of the same deck. You have to acclimate your deck and your strategy to beat that. And I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is always playable. You just have to be able to make sure that you're able to keep up. You have to be able to make sure that your creativity is still able to shine with that versatility.
Okay, I can feel a little better now about my answer because I thought mine was too like peace and love, and now I'm like, okay, maybe mine wasn't peace and love enough. I was just gonna say, and maybe mine's just a harsher version of Brian's, but I was gonna say a format is always playable as long as you want to play it. Like, I just feel like if you genuinely want to play the format and you have the means and the resources and everything to do so, like, you can play. Like, will it be fun necessarily? I feel like playable and fun are two very different words that people kind of get misconstrued in this community, especially. Like, there are very toxic and terrible formats. Is it playable? Yes. Is it fun? No. Like,
that's very true.
I feel like as long as you want to play the format, you can play the format. Like, you can play the tier 0 broken deck, or you can play the not tier 0 broken deck. It doesn't mean it's unplayable, it just means you're probably having less fun than the person playing the tier 0 deck. But I always think a format is playable. It's just a matter of what is being played is the real factor.
And I think maybe just to piggyback off of that, like, fun is also subject, right? Like, you could, I can't say how many people I know that you go to like a local level event and, you know, maybe they're not playing the best deck in the format, but they're playing their favorite deck, and they may be going, instead of, you know, 0-4, or wait, or is it 4-0, they're going 0-4, but they're the people in the room who've had the most fun because they are playing their favorite deck. So I think that's, you know, maybe just the piggyback.
Yeah, so I think the format is always playable. It's just, you know, you wanting to play it and putting in the work for it.
Yeah, I definitely understand that completely. I think, in my own opinion, as long as a format does not include hand rips, I believe that it will be playable. I think those are the worst possible formats. If you hop into Goki format, if you were back in like the Dragon format when it was like the 2-hand loop, hand trap them one time and then you are down 3 cards. It just feels terrible.
I mean, yeah. That definitely takes the playability out of it, I understand.
Yeah, so that was one thing too for me that I was just like, you know what? I'll play almost any format. As long as there's no hand loop involved, I'm okay.
Yeah, that's
fair.
valid. That's very valid.
So when we talk about formats in general, though, we talk about the really fun formats. We talk about the really bad formats. What makes a format go stale?
Oh, there's a lot of responses for this one.
Yeah.
One that comes to my mind. Obviously, I think there are a lot of responses to this, but I feel like for a format to get stale, which I feel like our format right now isn't in that period, but like it could very well be like the amount of time that is between one ban list to another. Obviously, we're kind of lucky in the point of the game that we're in right now, where we have Tier Element Sprite. We have 2 very powerful decks, and Tier is definitely the more powerful between everything. But, like, it doesn't feel stale because the deck has been changing almost week to week, as we just mentioned. Like, the deck is getting innovated constantly, and I feel like the decks that are being played at the top are all kind of interchanging just ever so slightly. So it doesn't feel stale yet. But I feel like if we go significantly longer without a ban list, it could definitely feel that way. I do feel like the ban list has an element to the staleness, but that's also depending on the product that comes out, the level of the sets, like what cards we are getting. So like it really is like an interworking of all of those elements, because there have been formats where we have only had a couple months between ban lists, but our product was really not stellar and didn't impact the way the game was played for a little while. So it felt really stale because there was nothing new being contributed to the meta. So it really depends on if the product is impacting the meta.
I would have to say maybe similar to that, but my definition of stale might just be a little different, but I think it's when every deck and every strategy is doing one of the same things, right? So like a previous format ago, when it was like the punk decks or any of the mill decks that were not the tier element stuff, I was playing the zombie variant. It's a very fun deck, and the entire goal is just Scythe Lock. Your deck is Scythe Lock, my deck is Scythe Lock, her deck is Scythe Lock, your friends' decks are Scythe Locks. It's really, it does kind of feel like whoever wins the dice roll and it just gets to resolve Dagda and Fiber or whatever, or whether it's just, you know, Baron tagging out to bring out Scythe. Like there's 80 different ways to get Scythe. Or, I mean, I know this is probably a very controversial topic, but like when it's like, oh cool, beta negate Mystic Mine. Like, I feel like we've been seeing that for a few too many months, and I just think that like when every single deck centers around 2 pieces of interaction where it's like, oh, I just lose the game, right? And I know this like maybe like the combo player in me, but like if we're talking about Scythe and we're talking about mine, these are like floodgates, but they do feel like oppressive floodgates where they're almost game-ending type floodgates, right? Like if you can't out the mine, or you don't have the, or you know, now people are just playing 3 mine in the main deck. So if you're not main decking 3 outs to mine, it's like, man, this is I think stale is the only word that comes to mind when you enter those game states.
That's fair.
So just a sidebar then, because we're talking about cards that just get activated and you just lose.
Yep.
How do we feel about lingering effects like Dweller?
Tough, because it's like, are you a tier player or not? Like, it's like, I feel like this format specifically, if you're a tier player, you hate Abyss Dweller and you want Abyss Dweller banned. Whereas, like, if you're any other type of player that doesn't really care about Dweller, it doesn't matter. I do not enjoy lingering effects. For example, like Scythe, you know, it's like, hits the board, does the thing, that really sucks. The turn is screwed unless you have an immediate out for it. But, like, it's those kinds of effects that impact, like, a whole mechanic for me that really bother me. I think Dweller doesn't bother me as much because, like, it just depends on what deck you're playing and what your build revolves around. But when it's something like Scythe, that is literally an entire mechanic of like, the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, summoning from the extra deck, that's when it gets really frustrating. So I feel like Dweller is a little more specific, but, like, I don't enjoy lingering effects. I think they're kind of poo-poo.
I think just once again, like, to kind of piggyback off of that, to flesh out my thoughts, I think it's just really difficult because I think, like, floodgatey or, like, lingering effects like that, not that any of them are less broken than the other, but I do think that there are two camps to kind of put these cards in, right? Like, you have, as Logan said, like, the Scythes that are, you know, they kind of affect everyone that's playing an extra deck with, like, mathematically, if you look at a breakdown, that's probably like 99% of most decks in competitive play. You have something like Mystic Mine, where it's like, you know, okay, if I'm not playing a trap deck and I'm playing a combo deck or even a mid-range deck where the majority of my strategy revolves around resolving monster effects, it kind of just shuts me off forever. And then you can look at the other stuff. You know, once again, not that they're any less broken, but like Dweller, which only shuts off the graveyard, or like Lancia, which only stops banishing, or Droll, which only stops searching. These are very powerful cards, but I do think that they were specifically designed to stop decks that, you know, search a lot, or that function in the graveyard, or that banish cards. And once again, not that I want to just reiterate that I don't think that they're less fair, but I do think that there are two completely different camps where, like, some are more problematic than others, and like as Logan said, like, yes, Dweller is a very powerful card, and it's an absolute FTK against Tearlament. Personal opinion, I'm not playing Tearlament. Summon Dweller against me all day long. It doesn't matter.
That's very no preference. So,
like, if I'm siding Droll against a Drytron player, that Drytron player is going to be really mad. But if I side in Droll against an Altergeist player, they're not going to care because it has no effect. So I feel like when it comes to, like, those, like, lingering floodgatey type things, definitely they're very, very powerful. But I do think that there are the applications.
Some lingering effects are just not as impactful as others.
100%.
Yeah, I did want to touch on this topic just because of the fact that there are a lot of people that do want Dweller banned, and I'm not one of them because I think Dweller is fantastic.
They're all tier players.
I do just want to say, though, that then there are cards like that, like Dweller, when it does come up in multiple formats, not just this one, when no matter what the format is, if it's relevant, it's very relevant. So
absolutely, yes.
I do see the side of the argument where it's like, hey, you know, this card's pretty insane. But at the same point, I'm kind of on the side of things where I'm like, we can have good cards without them needing to be banned.
Yes. That is.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I feel like that is a very common problem where a card gets very, very powerful and people are like, oh, ban it.
And I am a tier player, saying the Dweller does not need to get banned. So tier is very fun. I went undefeated yesterday, and that was really funny because it was like round 3, and I was playing against Mystic Mindburn. They go activate Mind Field Barrier, and I was like, you got it. And we go game 2. I was just trying to get together this combo because my hand wasn't that good. So I decided to just end on Curious Spell Canceller. And I was like, it's gotta get me there. And so then I passed, and my opponent was like, well, that's a good Yu-Gi-Oh card, and then scooped. I was like, sick. And so we went game 3, and then I was like, yeah, this is just over. Like, he didn't open up anything, so that was great. But beating Mystic Mindburn is fantastic, so... Yeah, just my sidebar. But as far as, like, what, for me, makes a format stale, I would have to say that it comes in waves to the point where it's like, even this format alone, right? It's one of those things where I think that even in this format, I don't think that it's stale. It's one of those things where, like, we definitely need a ban list because there's just certain cards that just need to get hit.
To add to that, too, I genuinely don't feel like a ban list right now, unless they, like, absolutely just nuke everything, actually fixes the entire format.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that too. Like, they would have to hit so many cards.
A lot.
And like even if you look at something as simple as like Nessie, right? Like Nessie is a dark aqua that just changed the entire way the tier plays.
Literally.
And so like that's another card that you just have to limit out of nowhere. And that would be like the same thing, and we'll talk about this a little later on too. It's like Snow, Super Poly, Call by the Grave, like all these different cards that a lot of people are just on the same page on. Hey, Call by the Grave needs to get banned. I'm 100% on that.
No, a billion percent. A billion percent.
That card, like, it's kind of wild when people argue with you and they're like, listen, that card's fine. And you're like, in what world is this card okay?
There are a lot of words for Call by the Grave. I don't even want to get started because I know the comment section will just start ranting and raving, but man, that card's gotta go. Sorry, team.
You can use it offensively, you can use it defensively, like, it's nuts.
It does everything.
Card's nuts. Card's insane.
So, I mean, there's so many cards that you'd have to hit, but even this format, like, I'm usually the one that just says, let's play triangle formats, or let's play, you know, something different than 15 good decks. But lately, it's actually not been that bad. You go to, like, a localized tournament, and then you start seeing, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different decks there. And then, like, even my round 1 yesterday, I blinded Dweller past my opponent, and they go Kaiju, summon Grimaju. Like, you know, it'd be like that.
All right, you just got it, bro. Like,
so I was like, you know what, that's just fine. But so I think that's pretty cool. And so for a format to be completely stale, I think that there's a few things that really just, you were saying as well, just everyone needs to be doing the same thing. And I literally saw my friend at a regional. Game 1, he summons Scythe and his opponent scoops. Game 2, his opponent summons Scythe, he scoops. Game 3, he summons Scythe, and he scoops. I was like, this is fantastic.
That is gaming, my friends.
It was like an 8-minute match. They both stood up, and I was like, well.
Well then.
Yeah, it's pretty great, this game that we play.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I don't know. Definitely let me know down in the comments below what you think makes a format stale, because this is something that is a really interesting topic whenever you talk to different people, because everyone has a different idea of stale. So, definitely interesting.
Yep.
So, kind of getting away from that too, we were talking a bit about fun earlier as being like more subjective toward like what deck you like to play and like what decks are out. But what do you feel makes a deck fun? What does a deck need to become fun?
I feel like that definitely depends on what everyone's idea of fun is. Some people's fun is Mystic Mind Burn, and some people's fun is heroes ending on a nib token. Like, everyone has a different idea of what fun is, so I feel like that's just definitely like a personal answer. For me, like, on my personal level, I think in order for a deck to be fun, I have to, like, and again, this is, like, so specific to the person, but I feel like for a deck to be fun, I have to really like the play style of a deck. Obviously, this is, like, so superficial, but I usually have to like the art style before I even get into the deck. So, like, I have to like the artwork of the cards. And then if I like the artwork, I just read the cards, which is something we all really struggle to do. I read the cards, and then I'm like, oh, this deck, like, Sprite, I thought was so cool. I love level 2s. I love the way that Sprite plays, and I like over tier. I don't enjoy fusion summoning decks or fusion-based decks. I really like Synchro and Xyz summoning, love Link summoning, and, like, Sprite is just so cool. I love level 2s. I play frogs. Those are 2s. So it's kind of just all of the things that I enjoy in a deck put into one. I get to play a really meta engine like the adventure stuff. I get to play my frogs, which are like the cards that got me into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm just nostalgia baited into it already. And then the 2s with the sprites are just outrageously powerful. So it's kind of everything I like in a deck in one. And it's honestly like the first like tier 1 deck that I really like, other than like Sword Soul for a few minutes, and then Protos got yeeted. But it's like the first extremely meta deck that I've ever played, and I really enjoy it. So I feel like it really depends on like the artwork of the deck, the mechanics of the deck, and the play style of the deck. And the fun is really up to you. Like, everyone's idea of fun is different. Some people just are naturally control players. Some people are mid-range. Some people are combo. I'm a very mid-range player. So like it's so up in the air for everybody. Like, everyone can have a different answer. So like a deck is fun for me if I can competently play it, interact with my opponent, and like feel like I'm doing something. Like, it's so shallow and basic, but like for me, I don't need a lot for it to be fun. I just need to be able to know how to play the deck and interact and just like do the thing.
I
like,
think I feel like that's really ironic because you say, you know, like you're having fun when you're interacting with your opponent. I'm not saying I don't like interacting with my opponent, but I think for me, I'm having fun when I'm interacting with myself. And what I mean by that is like I'm growing and I'm learning as a player. And this is no shade to control players. I don't think it takes a ton of skill to set 5 and flip trap cards. If you're having fun, by all means go and do that.
Yeah, but that's fun.
But like for me, like when I'm like, okay, I need to do this, my opponent hand trapped me here, I have to now answer this, they could potentially have that. Like when you're like trying to like calculate all these different variables and then you make the correct play and you realize that you've been rewarded because of it, that's fun to me. I have fun. Like to me, Yu-Gi-Oh's always kind of been like a problem-solving game.
Yeah.
And when you find the root, then you like, you know, you're able to solve the problem, and you're like, man, this like actually really generated me a ton of advantage, and my opponent had this, and I played around it, so it's like a dead card, etc., etc. I'm just rambling now, but being able to like learn and become a better player and put yourself in scenarios that you maybe don't want to, but then get yourself out of them, I think that's really fun. It's kind of like taking the challenge and you know, going at it head on and just being able to solve the problems that the game gives you, I think is really fun.
No, that's fair. I guess I didn't think of that as like fun as in like interaction is like the strategy behind it all. The strategy of what do I need to do to out this board, or what do I need to do to ensure that they can't out my board. Like the fun part of the puzzle that is like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! So I think it's something for all of us. We all enjoy the strategy behind it because at the end of the day it is a strategy game, and I think the fun really does come in finding our way out of these situations.
And if we're being honest too, I think fun is winning.
Winning is also fun.
Winning is fun.
But it doesn't have to be. But like, you know, it's fun is so subjective, but I do think the strategy behind it and everything is also a very big factor.
Yeah, so I definitely had a few favorite or best decks in my mind as I've grown through the game. And so the very first deck that I actually started learning like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh from was Shadal. So that's a big drive for me to want to play things like Tier, is because I love fusion decks. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't know. And that's like every single time.
I just openly bashed fusion decks. I'm like, I hate fusion archetypes.
And that's completely fine too, right? Like everyone has their own types of decks that they like to use. And so for me, every time that I can summon Winda, I'm like, let's do it. But so you know, but so you know, it's went from like Shadals to Subterror to Striker, and then the Tier.
How are we friends? Team, you can truly have friends that play like the just absolute hellfire of your imagination, and it's all okay.
Yeah, I will say, knowing that you're a Striker player now, we might have to talk after.
Yeah, so Striker is like the deck that I've played the longest, and it's honestly like super fun. I remember the first time that I started learning like how to really improve throughout the deck, because that's a deck that you really have to just play perfectly or else you just lose.
Yes, it is actually a skillful deck, yes.
So I remember there was like one like tournament, it was like a big tournament, and it was like toward the end of the day, and my hand wasn't super optimal, and I remember it was Engage, Multi-Roll, and Talents, and my opponent had an Omni, and I was like,
yeehaw.
Okay, so I need to find a way to a monster here. So I was like, what do we do? And so knowing that your opponent literally has to interact with Multi-Roll, I activated Multi-Roll, I set Talents, and I go Multi-Roll target Talents, and then they negated and blew up my Multi-Roll, flipped the Talents, and stole their monster. So it was pretty cool, and that's one thing too, where the more that you learn, the more that you grow, and you start learning how to like really interact with your opponent, because you just know the types of cards that like they have to interact with. That's what makes it fun for me. That's what's a deck that's really intricate, really amazing. And that was one thing too, like back when I played Guru, it wasn't for a long time. It was just when it first came out, and I played it for the YCS because nobody knew what the cards did. And so I brought it to the YCS, and I just remember just feeling like I was miles ahead, because every single game I got into, and I just knew what everyone's deck did, but like nobody knew what my deck did. So I just felt like like there was a moment I activated Cave Clash and summoned Guru and passed, and my opponent was like, Cave Clash, that card sucks. And I was like, yup. And so they go, they're like, normal summon? And I was like, Book of Moon. They're like, you can't. And I was like, Cave Clash, the card you said sucked. Like,
the card you said sucked.
So, you know, it's one of those things that that's why I really love the game. That's why I really like playing certain decks, and, you know, playing tier and playing like the really explosive combo deck. It's really cool, especially, it's going to sound really toxic, but when you end on like Elf pointing at Dweller or Canceller plus like IP and like Snow, you know, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
So
No, I
Great.
I completely understand. And like everyone, like there's one thing where you grow and you start to play those really like, you know, broken explosive decks, but then there's also like my idea of also a fun deck as opposed to like Bright or whatever. My idea of a fun deck is like normal summoning a zoo, having them like stop my normal summon and popping it, and me passing because I can't do anything because my deck is Zeus Turbo, and if they stop my normal summon, I die. So like everyone's got like ideas of fun, and fun isn't necessarily the best deck. I think Zodiac is probably one of my favorite decks of all time, and it's absolutely god awful. But I love that deck and I love playing it for fun. So like, it's
Dryden to 1.
Yeah, Dryden to 1. Please bring it back. I'm begging you.
wait, hold up here. So we're bashing Striker, but Striker is just the Link form of Zoo.
But I never played Zodiac when it was really good. I only played Zodiac like after Dryden got banned like the second time.
Yeah.
It was actually really funny. The first time I picked up Striker cards for like a month, I didn't want to play the deck. I thought that the deck was terrible, and that's when I was playing Guru. And I was like, I don't want to play that deck. That deck sucks. And then I read Engage again, and I was like, you know what? Maybe we try this.
maybe we do this.
So I'm glad that I ended up picking that up and dropping Subterror. But, you know, it's the growing process in this game.
Yeah.
So, talking a bit more about the game and having different formats, having the hand loot formats, the tier zeros, the formats like right now where we have like 15 good decks, and then we also have things like triangle formats. I'm definitely interested to know what you both think about triangle formats, like Eternal.
Okay, so like again,
That's a tough one.
This
Yeah.
is so loaded because like we came into the game during Eternal. Like that was the format we actually started playing the game, and even competitive is a strong word because we were terrible at the time, but like we tried to play competitively. But I really loved Eternal format in particular. We bring it up very fondly, and I know some people have horrific memories of Eternal and they wish it never happened and it was terrible.
It's easily our favorite format.
Yeah, but like
Same.
it was so because I was playing Thunder, Brian liked Orcust, everyone was on Striker. Like I feel like those were just three decks that were such powerhouses, and I don't feel like we'll ever have a format quite like. And then we had Salad as well, so it was kind of like a square. It was like a square format. It was kind of weird. But I think Toss format, as the cool kids call it, was like a beautiful gem of its time, and I don't know if we'll ever have a format quite like it that has that stellar star quality. But I think triangle formats are really neat. I think they're super cool. I know that not everyone loves them, but I love it when decks, the top decks, all directly counter each other. We're kind of in a format like that right now. It's not. I don't think it's a perfect triangle, but we've got like Exo Sisters, Tier, and Sprite. They're all extremely powerful on their own, and they all kind of counteract each other really well. Like Exo Sister is basically the FTK deck against Tier. Tier is basically the FTK deck against pretty much everything else. Sprite is really good against Exo Sisters. Like, I feel like all of these decks kind of interact with each other really well, but like not in the same power level as the like Eternal format, for example.
Yeah.
I feel like if like that was like a perfect triangle. It was like crazy, and then you had Salad come in too, and I think Eternal was just something very special, and I miss it very dearly. And my God, I want Colossus back so god dang bad. But I think triangle formats are really neat. I really enjoy them. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like just kind of like piggybacking off of what I said before. I think the triangle formats really help you become a better player because you find yourself in a lot of the same scenarios, but you have different variables. And sometimes the solution to problem A might not be the same solution to problem A.1. And it's like, oh, I really have to work around that one card that they may have in their hand because I know what these deck builds look like. Or, you know, they searched this one card and then they set 5. Like, which one am I trying to play around? I think triangle formats, because you have so much information and because you know so much about the decks, right? Like as you said, right now we're in a 15 format deck, so it's like, oh, I have to prepare for mine. I have to prepare for, you know, like Sprite, Tier Limit, Exo Sister. You could play a bunch of the new stuff too. Like there's a bunch of people playing the cards from the new set. And you just have to like be ready for that, know what they all do. But in a triangle format, you just really know exactly what to prepare for, where the interaction points are, and I do think it is very much more skill based.
Yeah, and I think someone in chat mentioned too, like all of the decks in a triangle format have like some sort of flaw that like another deck can counteract, which is kind of the point of the triangle format. Like Thunder versus Striker was like just end game, because if you get Colossus on the board, Striker doesn't really do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because they need to search cards, and at that time it was really powerful. Orcus was like an entirely new deck.
Non-targeting send.
Yeah, that was really good against Thunder, because that it doesn't destroy, and non-destruction removal was like so new and like crazy back then. So like I think that's what's really cool, is when the decks all have a flaw that another deck kind of carries for it. So I think that's really neat. I don't know. I think triangle formats are a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ding, when that came out, that card was nuts.
Wild. Crazy. It's still nuts. Like, Ding's crazy. He was really walking so that everyone else could run.
Shark Cannon? Oh, man.
Damn.
Everyone's like, you can overlay this over Galatea? Like, you know?
Like, woo!
And now it's funny because it's the same thing, right?
And now Sprites, you can overlay Elf into Gigantic. That's just so crazy. We've come full circle. It's beautiful.
Yeah, can you believe that Mystic Mind came out in the same set?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Ew.
It's been legal for a while.
That's so disgusting.
It's kind of funny. It was legal as long as Vanities was before it was noticed.
That's wild. That's like gross.
So Vanities came out in Star Strike Blast as a common, for those of you who don't know, and nobody played it. It was just there. And then one day, somebody was like, this card! And so...
It feels really good!
Yeah, so then it got banned. And it's kind of the same thing that happened with Mystic Mind. So hopefully, you know, we see history do the repeat.
God, I hope so.
And it's interesting, though. I love triangle formats personally. I think that they're a lot of fun. Honestly, playing in this one was great. Having 3 engage in your hand and losing to a singular Colossus was fantastic.
That was fun. I will say that was really cool.
You couldn't be mad. You were like, you know what? You got there. And it was a lot of fun, too, because you knew that if you sat down and you played against Orcust, it was going to go really well. You knew if you sat down against Colossus Pass, it was going to go really rough.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's kind of like now, right? Like, I was at a tournament yesterday, and my opponent goes, reveal Martha, and I was like, oh no. You know, I was like, this is rough. So I had like flashbacks.
Draw phase shifter.
Oh, he did that game too. So don't worry about that.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
It all comes full circle, you know.
So it's super cool, super fun, super interactive. But yeah, I don't know. Back when we were playing in this particular format, I feel like. So, Exorcister, I don't know if it's, like, up there as, like, one of the best decks. It's definitely good.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's, like, the salad of this format, right?
Yes.
Like,
oh, yeah, I was literally just gonna say, it's like salad. Like, it wasn't quite in, like, the triangle of sorts, but the deck that could come in and swoop if it needed to
be honest, if Salad got, like, everything back, like, 3 Gazelle and whatnot, that might actually be a scary deck again.
Oh, it'd be insane. They have Heat Soul now. Are you kidding me? It'd be crazy.
Playing against that deck before, honestly, in the format, was pretty scary because of the amount of extenders in the graveyard.
Oh, it's crazy.
Just get one name on board. That's all you need to do, and then all of a sudden you're just going crazy. So, like,
the good news is, if they ban Dweller, Salad's super playable again.
Yeah, Dweller again is just one of those cards, just so strong. Big fan. It's a good card. It's a good card. So talking about good cards, though, we have a lot of them that we want to see get hit on the ban list.
Oh man,
there's a laundry list of cards that we want to see get hit on the ban list. So, what would you both say are some of your most notable hits?
I
All right,
found
the
it real.
first
At
one,
first
the first
thing,
one,
I
we
know
should say it
gotta-
together.
No,
We
no,
should
no,
say it
no, no,
together.
no. Well, I noticed that you don't have this particular card on your little PowerPoint slide.
Oh, these are just examples.
Yeah, I just forgot the most important one that should be on the list. It's fine. All right, we're gonna count through. We're gonna say it together. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
1, 2, 3.
Snow.
Scythe. Oh.
Oh.
They both start with an S, but they both suck. So
Yeah.
Snow and Scythe. I think those two cards are
Yeah, Scythe is pretty rough.
top of my list. I hate Scythe. I think that card needs to go. I know it's not like excessively popular this format, but I think it's one of those cards that's just kind of an FDK for most decks, and I think it's really terrible. And it's like, oh, draw the out, but I don't want to draw the out. How about I don't want to deal with it? I think the card sucks.
Yeah, literally.
I think
And
that,
you can get to it through like 4 hand traps.
yeah,
Too. It's crazy.
I just like Dagda.
Combo. Oh, cool. Dagda
Yeah,
fiber,
as long as you
pass.
can make Dagda, you can make Scythe, which is like really frustrating, and I don't want that in my life, and like I don't want to ban Dagda because that's just promoting a whole different kind of issue. Like just get rid of Scythe and I'm fine. Snow sucks.
Yeah.
I hate that card.
I think that might be the biggest mistake since
Oh
we've been
my
playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
God, I don't.
That they did and brought back off
They
the list. That card's not
rebanned
okay.
Dry reason, but they like think Snow coming back is okay. Like I have so many questions for Konami, and like
not
none
once
of
per
them have been answered.
turn, not once per chain,
just-
1850,
Ugh.
basically searchable.
Does it on normal summon.
Helps
like,
you make Dweller, like
just absolutely like
yeah, they're
toxic
and it's
nonsense.
like, and like, and not to, like once again, like not to say that like certain cards are or are not fair, but we are in a format now where you are main decking Dark Ruler, and like Dark Ruler is one of those cards that helps you crack the board, but like having a Snow Engrave with 14 cards,
so like,
and then like access to even more on like your field and your hand, and the fact that it's not once per turn, it's just like it doesn't, it kind of just like null and voids.
Well, yeah, it's because it's like that.
so
like you have to Dark Ruler the board, but then you also have to have an interaction for Snow, but then you also have to have an interaction for Snow, and then you also have to have an interaction for Snow, and it's like go away, like oh my god, like.
Dumb.
But yeah, honestly, Snow and Scythe top of my list.
Mine is the top.
Mystic
yeah.
Mine.
I think those for me, those are the top 3.
I don't know. I think Called By is pretty up there for me. I really don't like Called by the Grave as a card. I just really don't want more copies of that or the one copy that exists. It's extremely powerful and basically.
Someone just said in our chat too, like, oh, when they activate Snow, just chain
use Called By,
and then they chain Snow. Like it's
chain
literally
Snow!
so stupid.
Like, hello.
It's so dumb.
To be fair though, even if it was a hard once per turn, it'd still be dumb.
Yeah, it's
no,
absurd.
I think the fact that it's not is why it's even more dumb.
Any card that if it got a hard once per turn clause and it's still dumb should be banned.
100%, absolutely.
Insane.
But yeah, honestly, like Called By, Snow, Mine, and Scythe are like my 4. Like if they hit any of those 4 cards, I'll be super pumped. I don't think Needle Fiber should be banned. Or sorry, Halka Fibrex.
We're pro Fiber on this channel.
Fiber's a good card though. I mean, Fiber's pretty cool. It helps out a lot of decks. So
yeah, it's a good card. It's a fun card. Back to what we were
Yeah.
talking about before. I think it does help a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I will say, this is like, man, we could talk about the ban list for hours. So
True.
I'm trying to keep this super short and concise. But like, a lot of people are like, oh, bring back the tuners because of. I think there are so many cards in the game. Like if you can step back and remove yourself from like that box of the thought process. Those tuners were not fair with or without Fiber. Like Goku or Gofu special summoning itself for free, and then like Steam the Cloak is like a 1-card link 3, sometimes link 4 if you have the right extenders. Like Jet is insane. It came back, which is it's still crazy. O-Lion, like just generating tokens. Like these cards are broken regardless of Fiber.
Yeah,
yes,
like,
Fiber can tune them out of the deck, but like. To act like these cards weren't being abused in other decks prior to Fiber is just incorrect.
Yeah, like I think hitting Auroradon was just the right thing to do from the get-go. Like I'm happy they hit Auroradon. I was like, oh, that's fine. Everything's cool. I think Needle Fiber is extremely powerful. I'm not trying to like downplay the power of Needle Fiber. It's just an extremely great card. But I also like, and I hate saying this because I know this is like, I'm just making double standards as I talk, but like, Needle Fiber is really good for like decks that are rogue and decks that aren't tier 1. And like I know tier 1 can play these decks, of course, which is kind of the problem. But like I really think Hulk just helps other decks so much and makes other decks have so many more play lines and everything. So like, and just have more interaction and more of a chance, I guess is the best word. But it's tough. Like I don't think it's ban-worthy. I really don't. Maybe I'm like on some hard copium, but I don't think Hulk is ban-worthy. I think we have
cards that surround
we have one, and like yes, like the cards that surround it also make it very broken. And like I really it sucks because I feel like it's getting banned, but I don't feel like it's justified, and it's like super frustrating. But But like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm looking at the little PowerPoint slide. We have Nessie and Swap, which is interesting. It's funny because when Nessie came to 3, I was like, "Oh, Nessie's at 3. That's amazing.
Yeah,
we finally get to
literally.
have cool danger cards for like Dark World." And I'm like, "Oh no, it's here."
I think it's really difficult to talk about the dangers too, because like if we're being honest, like, you know, we talk about this on our channel all the time. When it comes to ban lists, we like to analyze a lot of the aspects that go into the ban list, not just like the player aspect. And Konami really does want to sell product, right? Their business, that's their model, is make money. That's every business's model, as it should be, because you want to succeed and thrive as a business.
Yeah.
And like, yes, the tier cards are really powerful, and Nessie could be limited because of those. And we get brand new Dark World support, so like you could play devil's advocate and be like, oh, maybe more dangers could come off, and they keep Nessie at 3 to help sell that stuff, because whether you agree with the way that tier is played or not, that has no financial implications on Konami's product and the way in which they are trying to sell it. You could also make the counter argument too, like, cool, you just take Nessie out, you put in Choops and you put in Moths and you just make Dweller anyways. Like, it's just, there's so many counter arguments for all these things that I think a lot of people don't. They're just like, oh, this card sucks and I hate this card, or I hate playing against this card, ban it. Well, like, also Konami business needs to sell products to stay a business and to make money. So like, just keep that in mind when you're talking about banning cards. Like, just because you want it banned, Konami may want to sell product in, you know, in relation to that. So I think that's just like an aspect that not a lot of people think about.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I think Link monsters were just one of the most powerful things that Konami ever came up with. Like, it feels like since Dual Overload, especially, like almost every Link monster out of that set has been banned except for what, Hulk and Celine, like, and like the Tenyi Link monster.
Yeah, the Link form.
Like, everything's been banned out of that set for justifiable reasons. They're absolutely fantastic cards. They're amazing. They quite literally changed the way the game is played, which is great. And I think that's kind of the point of good cards, is to, you know, change the way the game is played. And I don't like, as opposed to Verte and like Auroradon and like Link Cross, those cards are justifiably bannable just reading them. You read the card and you're like, dear God, this is absurd. Like, Link Cross didn't see the light of day for more than 10 minutes, it felt like. Because that card was the most broken, like, Link one on the planet. That card was
dumb.
I think it's absolutely wild. And, like, people who didn't play during, like, COVID have no idea what Link Cross is. And it's like, you guys probably are better off not knowing, but, like, man, Infernoble had a hell of a time for 10 minutes.
Link Cross, like, Metal Marcher.
Literally, like, there was a point where I wanted Metal Marcher banned. Wow, that was really hard to say. Like, there was a point where I wanted that card banned, which is so funny. But like, I just don't read Hulk and go, God, that card needs to be banned. And like, there has not been one format where I'm like, Hulk is the problem. Like, it's really tough. I have like mixed feelings. I would understand if it gets banned, but I will be really sad if it is.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to wrap up my thoughts real quick, because I know there's probably other things
we
to
just
talk
talk
about.
in circles.
We could talk about this for a thousand years
shut
too.
Up.
So like, wrap up my thoughts. I think Fiber is okay. I genuinely do feel like it will get banned. All honesty, I don't think the Sprite deck is that strong. It's very good, and I think the tier limit deck just absolutely obliterates.
Yeah, like, I think Sprite is like super fair.
I think Sprite is super fair compared to the meta decks that are up there. When it comes to tier limit, I genuinely don't think they're going to hit anything. If they hit anything, I would love to see them ban Snow and ban Curious. These cards that are just like, you know, generic, like limited cards like Foolish Burial that are searchable via the extra deck. I'm not saying there are always problems, but Curious has always been a very broken card. I was also, you know, first read, I was like, damn, this card's really good. Same thing with, what's his name? Shooting Riser. On first read, I was like, this card's going to be broken one day. And then here we are 2 years later, like, found it. There it is. This card's insane. Like, Called By, I think, is absolutely degenerate. A lot of people are like, oh, it's blah, blah, blah. It's just literally, the way that I like to break it down is that Called By is effectively 6 hand traps. Called By is DD Crow for 2 turns, so it's 2 DD Crow. Called By the Grave is Skullmeister for 2 turns, so it's 2. That's 4. And then it's realistically, I know this is a little bit more of a stretch, but like theoretically, if you're playing the card correctly and you're playing against the proper decks, it's Imperm and or like Valor, because like say you know, like the easiest answer is normal Alistair, activate Alistair, link it away, activate Invocation, chain Called By, banish the Alistair. Cool. Next turn. You know, I can't even use the Alistair's effect and like damage calc, you know, so it's like, it really is like, it stops so much. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, my deck needs to play through hand traps. And one of our favorite content creators, Farfa, said, if your deck can't play through 1 Ash, maybe you're playing the wrong deck. And it sucks and it's really unfortunate to hear, but I do think that is actually
there's merit to it.
There's a lot of merit to that. And if your deck can't play through 1 Interruption and you need Call By as that one of crutch, maybe you are just kind of playing the wrong deck, or just deck building improperly. Call By can hit main deck monsters, extra deck monsters. Like, The card is insane.
Everyone advocates for 3 called by until the tier 1, tier 0 decks start playing called by, and then they absolutely not only are womping you with their regular deck, but the called by is also just, basically telling you you're not playing the game at all. So, like, it's really tough. Like, I understand the arguments for called by and everything, but, like, I just think that card is way too powerful to be at 1.
And, like, the devil's advocate, too, like, a lot of people are always like, oh, call by can come to 3. Like, can you imagine if something like Drytron had 3 call by for your 1 draw? Like,
yes, not only
you
are you not
literally
playing,
just lose the game. Like, a lot of people like, my rogue deck needs it. And when your rogue deck needs it, the meta decks can play it.
Yeah.
And when they can play 3 of it, you lose even more so. Like, you're hand looping yourself for 3 now. Like, it's just... It's a tough conversation to have. Yeah. We respect everyone else's opinion, but like I think this card is very unfair.
Called by also not hard once returned.
Yeah,
yes,
also,
yes.
It's crazy. But yeah, I don't think Sprite needs any hits, just wrapping up. I don't think Sprite really, to be honest, like, I could see them touching the Frog Engine. I don't think Toad is getting touched. I don't think it's justifiable right now. I honestly think Sprite is the most fair, like, chilling, like, between Tier and Sprite. Oh my god, Sprite is so fair. Are you kidding me? And it depends if they hit the Brave Engine as well. Like, if they, like, slap the wrist of the Brave Engine, I think a lot of people are playing, like, Brave Sprite shenanigans. Like, E-Telly can go to 1, or ban E-Telly, honestly, I wouldn't even be upset. E-Telly at 3 is absurd. I play 3 E-Telly in my Sprite deck because I play Gamma, and, like, it's just crazy. Like, it's not a hard once per turn. It just is a 2. You can get Gamma. It's crazy. I think it depends more, like, what other engines they hit for Sprite. I feel like if they hit E-Telly and or the Brave Engine, like, I think that's enough of a hit, because, like, I don't think Sprite is doing anything absurd right now, as opposed to Tier, which just tells you to basically F off, so.
If I may, maybe a little impromptu here, can I ask you, what is one of your, like, super hot takes for the ban list? Like, not like your generic, like, oh,
you got
whatever. Like,
got any spicy
you got any,
stuff?
like, some, like, any, like, sauce that you're like, you know what, this is a little unconventional.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I just bought 24 copies of Steam the Cloak, but but beside that, that's just copium. It's just funny copium. I don't know. We're getting new Blackwing support, and if Hulk gets banned, I was like, you know what, like,
That's impossible.
so I have a couple of super rares lying around now, but I think that's pretty fun. But besides that, as far as like a more hot take to have in the ban list, a lot of people right now, they're looking at like Blaster, even like Resort, like I kind of want to see one master plan, because there's a lot going on in the format, and Spirals already has like time twice, but to just outright kill the deck by banning the master plan, let it have one, I think that's fair. The amount of output some of these decks have right now, like, just we see it on so many different decks right now where they essentially do the same thing. And looking back on Spiral, the first iteration of the deck wasn't even that good comparatively to what we've had. The second iteration was fine. It just had a very bad problem with bricking, and that's why I sold it pretty quick. So, I mean, like, having a time now where we had, like, one master plan, and another card that is just randomly not at 3 right now is Sekka's Light. Like, we have not had Block Dragon for a long time.
So sad, man. So sad.
I'm trying to play 3-access BA with Hoveness. Like,
oh my god.
Like, give me Sekka's Light to play with that card. That would be super fun. I kind of throw in my ban list predictions here and there, and I just like throw it on there. And I'm like, yeah, Sekka's Light. Just to throw it out there, just be like, hey, don't forget about this card.
Yeah.
But
Very valid.
Seems to get forgotten every list, unfortunately.
They just, next one.
I wanted to bring conversation to Snow again real fast, everyone's favorite card. So I wanted to just mention, though, I think that Snow is super broken, not just because of what it does, right? It's just like, the application of the card is insane. The fact that Book of Moon is one of the best effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! As far as interaction with your opponent. We've seen it a couple times. Even Book of Moon for a long time was limited, and that's kind of wild to think about. But there was a whole time, like, before Eternal, where everyone was playing Guru, and we had Book of Moon be crazy. Like, and so it was really funny too, just playing as Drytron and just going normal Snow, book Vanity's Ruler, like, the other thing that came up a lot is the fact that it is just like a light monster, and that's your light target for things like Super Poly.
Crazy.
playing against Magnifica and then going super poly and he goes for what? And I just summon Mud Dragon. Like, it's kind of nice. So I don't know. I think that Snow just
you banish 7, bring back Snow, overlay those 2 for Dweller. Insane.
Yeah. So it's pretty good. So I don't know. Snow is just so versatile in like what it can do and all the different effects on the card. Again, not being hard once per turn is insane. Having cards like Nessie on there, for me, I personally don't want to see Nessie get hit. I've just put certain cards in my head just because of the fact that there's so many different arguments for certain cards. And Nessie is one of those cards too, especially in like the Dark World variant, where like the dangers themselves are very 50-50. If you get a danger hit out of your hand, they're the worst cards in the game. If they go off, they're crazy. But like
some of the best cards in the game.
You also can very rarely play hand traps when you're also playing dangers. So there is a fair amount of trade-off where like your turn 1, you're going crazy, but a lot of your hand's ripped. And it's usually just searched cards. So you know essentially everything that's in play at the time. So that's why I think that the dangers are really cool. They're really unique as to what they do. I think that's really cool if you start talking about cards that you're just like, oh, what does that card do? Like if you look at Chiron and you're like, oh, it's kind of like a danger. It's all one effect. So I think that's really cool. It's just another thing that really introduced like a new mechanic. And I know there's probably cards like that before, but this is just the most notable one in my eyes as far as being like their dangers. As far as cards that I really feel like genuinely just need a hit, I personally would really like to see Super Poly go to 1. It's a card that's just been around for too long. When it went to 3, it's another card that I was like, listen, one of these days, like, this is gonna be a problem. So
here we are.
I genuinely, I know this is probably like a very like a very normal take here, but like Super Poly, I'm not saying it's not unfair. It's very unfair, especially not being able to respond. But like Super Poly was a very decent card, and then Konami printed Garura.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're like,
it feels like you can't do anything anymore.
All right,
it's
never mind.
No matter what you say, you're playing. It's like Gawoowa. Like I'm like, oh my god, like I can't deal with this. Like, and then they draw a card. And, oh my god.
And it does double damage.
Oh,
like,
it's so frustrating.
Konami was really like, yo, how can we make this card better? That's cool. Can we make it better?
Hope that was them telegraphing that they are going to hit Super Poly eventually because Garura is just way too strong.
That's
just absolutely whack.
Well, it's crazy that even if you don't play Super Poly in tier, you still play Garura because you use it in combo to draw. Like, it's nuts. And I think that card's really neat too because I've definitely been in a situation with Field Spell up, my opponent's at 4K, all I have is Garura, and I'm like, attack? And they're like, that's fine, and I'm like, the game's over. And they're like, what do you mean?
Like little niche things too, right? Like the fact that it's a level 6. Like I'm a huge zombie fan, and like there's so many things you could do. Like you could like overlay it with Beatrice, put it in the graveyard to detach, to send Snow, to draw a card, and it's just like there's so many applications with Garura. Like the card's crazy.
Yeah, it's a very strong card. It is alarming how many good cards Konami is printing lately. It's really stressful.
So to kind of tie things up, I do want to talk about cards that are being printed that are too broken in my eyes. We have the next one here. It's Fenrir. We're all looking at this card right now. This card's kind of broken. If you control no monsters, so it's not even like a Pankratops, right? Like it's just like you just summon this thing.
Just nothing. You doink.
Yeah.
And that's pretty crazy on its own. During your main phase, you can add a monster from your deck to your hand that's of the archetype. And then when this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect,
Two very similar things.
Target a face-up card your opponent controls and banish it, not face up, face down. So
absurd. Like, it's like, oh, does your opponent do anything? Also, if you feel like declaring, like, that's cool. Like, they're two totally different circumstances. Like,
we just got off the Banlist topic, and, like, you know, we talk about this all the time, right? Like, you read this, and the first thing you said is like, oh, it's not even, you know, it doesn't even have the summoning requirements of Pankratops. You read a card like this, you're like, wow, this card is literally just Pankratops on steroids.
It's like...
And, like, to think, like, we talk, as I said, we talk about this all the time, like, to think the cards like Pank and, like, Red Reboot were ever at 3, like, and then you read cards like this, you're like, this is just coming out at 3?
So
oh my
wild.
god.
Like, it's just, yeah, this card is wild.
Insane.
This archetype terrifies me, I'm gonna be honest.
Also, I'm going to give you a hot take then, because you just mentioned something. I personally want to see a certain card at 3 that is currently at 1.
Reboot. Yeah.
Yeah. Reboot, that needs to be in the format because there are certain cards like Eradicator that have virtually no answer. And so most of the times you just auto lose to them going, hey, Eradicator. And
that's a horrible take. I think that's a pretty reasonable take.
I think that trap cards, you have to play third, but at the same point, like, those cards are so broken once they're on the board. Like, you need answers, and they keep coming back. And it's just like, you need something, because even the trade-off of, like, having your life at that point, and you have to kill them that turn, or else they get another broken trap.
Yep.
So, like, to me, I think that's fine.
I also think, like, and, like, this is coming from the control player in me, so, like, I know everyone's probably foaming at the mouth thinking of the idea of reboot at 3, but, like, I also think that if it's at 3 being the power level that it is, if it's at 3, because I remember when it was at 3. I remember playing against it when it was at 3, and I was playing traps, I was playing Paleo Frog, like, it was rough. But, like, I feel like when you knew it was at 3, like, it was in the side deck, first of all, so, like, game 1s were fine. And then in game 2s, if you go into it and you know reboot's at 3, I feel like you can at least mentally prepare as well as actually prepare. So, like, I hate it because I know that just condones the argument of, well, if called by is a 3, just prepare for it. And it's like, well, no, these are different circumstances. Like, one requires half of your life points and, like, you have to do something immediately, whereas called by just is an absolute blowout. But, like, I feel like reboot at 3 is not as outlandish as I once thought it would be.
Yeah, so, like, okay, I will... okay, so, like, hot take, right? Like, my hot take is I think Striker Dragon needs to be banned.
Oh, God.
I think Dragon Link has been playable for 4 years. It is literally a Link 1 that searches your field spell. It gets you all the extension that the deck needs, and it is a dragon. Dragons might be one of the most supported archetypes in the game.
Dragon.
And, like, not to say...
New support.
Fair. I personally I feel like Dragon Link, Dragon.deck, Dragon.combo, whatever you want to call it, has just been way too good, way too consistent, way too strong for 4 years. And I'm not saying that, like, it needs to be banned, but, like, if it got banned, I would celebrate to high heavens. Like, I like cards like that in decks like that, and it's just like, the deck has been tier 1 through Eternal format, the deck has been tier 1 through Block Dragon format, the deck was tier 1, like, now still, arguably, with, like, the Brave cards. Like, I guess when I say hot take, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I think dragons have also just been generic.
Yeah, and we get Beisted stuff in the next set. Like, come on.
Yeah, it is scary. Dragon Link is just that deck that doesn't stop, and it is just generic. Like, dragons are just the most popular, like, thing in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I get it, but, like, it's hard. Like, maybe you should just play 3 Boot Sector and cry about it. I don't know. Like, that just might be the way, but, like, I know that's gonna get us absolutely flamed, but, like, sorry, team.
I don't know. They've banned a lot of dragon cards, and they seem to not care at all. So,
I guess that's my point, right? Like, there's no LP, there's no Agripane, like, there's no Wyvern, like, although the baby dragons are at 1, and the deck is still tier 1.
Oh, chat is seething. They're like, leave D-Link alone. Don't ban a deck just because it's playable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but okay, all right. You know what? Yes, chat, you're right. You are right. You are all correct.
I just have a personal opinion. I'm just sick and tired of sitting across from this deck for 4 years.
I don't think it's a matter of, like, personal opinion. I do feel like Dragon Link is a deck that has been very strong for a long time, which is okay. I'm not saying it's not okay. However, there is a lot of support and new things coming out that will make decks a lot more powerful and cause problems. So, like, in order to... Konami likes to take preventative measures a lot. Like, there will be times where they'll hit stuff and we're like, why did they do that? And then we're like, oh, that's why they did that. I see. So, like, I wouldn't put it past Konami is what I'm saying to do something like that. Because they've done it 1,000 times. Like, why would they not preemptively hit things? And they put Striker 1, so, like, they've hit every other dragon card. Like, they've hit LP, they've hit Agripane, like, they've hit everything. So, like, I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised. Do I give a crap if they hit Striker Dragon? I personally don't. I really don't. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised.
To kind of like wrap up really broken cards, the last one that we have here is going to be the new Tearlaments card, and this thing is absolutely insane. The fact that, like, in the OCG, they limited the field spell, then gave them another one. They semi-limited Hoveness and then gave them a better one. So, Hoveness is a card that says when, and it's also needing to be procced. So, like, this card just says, during the main phase, quick effect, special summon this, and banish one from your grave, which just never mattered. It was always there. And then if this is normal or special summoned, mill 3. If it's sent to the grave, mill 2. Like, and then
It's disgusting.
it's level 7, so if you did want to play like Hulk, Red Rose, and Tier and do like a big combo as well, like you could. And so I think that's pretty crazy too. They did make it a psychic at least, so like.
Wow, how nice.
Yeah, so like interesting, but I don't know. I just thought it was super crazy. They're like, listen, like I know that we just hit the deck, but here are the same cards.
Literally though, they're just like, oh no. Anyway, like it's like they're like, oh yay, we hit the tier cards, and they're like, oh just kidding, here you go, here's this. And it's like, oh what the hell? I thought we were over this. Like, oh.
I think it's not on your. It wasn't on your like slide stuff to talk about. But Logan and I were talking about it in the car the other day driving home, and we've only been playing the game for like 3 or so years, and like you read cards like this, and then you read the Ashizu cards that are coming out, and then you genuinely like step back and you look at the and like I think this might be the first tier 0 format that we enter.
Yeah.
Like
it
this
could.
deck is insane.
It really depends on like the potential ban list if we get one. Like it's really gonna determine a lot, and I don't feel like they're gonna hit tier, which is like so scary. Like,
you know, it's funny that you mentioned that.
It's if they hit tier, is it gonna be enough?
True. Also that.
I think it's funny that you mentioned that though, because I was streaming the other day and somebody mentioned they're like, you know, they could hit Herald of the Orange Light, and I was like, what is that card doing? And they go, the Ishizu cards are fairies, and I was like, oh. I was like, I was like, so you're saying negate mill 5, like crazy. So I was like, you got a point there. Like that's interesting. Like preemptive hits.
The Ishizu cards are really gonna warp
Those are
things.
insane. Those cards are really, really
I am
crazy.
terrified of Yu-Gi-Oh in the next like 4 months. Like I am like actually horrified. Like.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild. Just thinking about all the different cards that we're about to be getting into, this whole format's about to be insane. And I wonder if that's what's taking the ban list right now a bit of time.
Be. Honestly, because they have to be so preemptive on like upcoming sets, because we only get ban lists. Like I know they don't enjoy doing emergency bans, so like they have to be preemptive because there's like 3 to 4 months between ban lists. So like they have to really either knock everything out now or like just let things go to anarchy for a couple months. So like I'm sure that's a lot of brain power and stuff, so I'm okay with them taking their time. However, I would really like to know what I need to be living in fear of very soon. Like,
yeah, and this ban list, like, it's already almost like the end of September. It's like mid-September.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's gonna last until next year. So it's like there's a lot of events that we have to play under this list.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be and a lot of sets that are coming out too. A lot of really powerful cards.
Dabble is crazy. Like that set is nuts.
Oh my god, that set every time I'm like, it seems like it's getting better and better, and like there's the Ishizu cards and Magnificent Mavens. Like there's just so much happening, and like it's this is probably going to be one of the most powerful formats we've had in a very long time.
Easily.
It was crazy.
It involves fusion monsters.
There we go.
GG is thriving.
GX.
And you know, it's super funny too because I was out here ranting and raving about getting linkage, and now I'm like, we get Lulu next set. Like that card is Solemn Warning on legs. Like,
It's true.
And then it comes back, and you can't kill anything else by battle except it. Like it. There's so many different things that I could say about next format that are going to be so crazy. And then the Bisted cards, the fact that they're DD Crows on legs, like, and then you can like get a Scarm for dragons, and I could talk about the next sets for hours. They're so strong.
I could talk about everything happening in the next 4 months for hours. It's kind of scary. When the ban list comes out, so much is going to flood and happen all at once. Like, it's going to be a madhouse.
And if you want to maybe talk about that stuff even further, we're maybe hopefully currently doing a subathon, so go check us out on Twitch.
Yeah, or if you ever want to talk about anytime later in the format, whenever that happens, we're more than welcome to do more talking, because we love theory talking with people all the time. It's nice. We have no friends. Please be my friend.
You know, I did just want to say real fast, though, thank you for joining me here on the channel. It's been a pleasure. It's always great seeing you at events as well. and you know, growing on YouTube and meeting everyone and being able to hang out and whatnot. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having us. Like, I really do enjoy these conversations. I think it's cool to see everyone's perspectives when it comes to the game, because everyone has very vastly different perspectives and experiences, and we're all very jaded in different ways. Some of us really like dragons, some of us really like purple cards, and that's okay. Like, at the end of the day, we're all entitled to having our feelings on the game because we've all lived very different lives with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that's what makes it cool, you know? So we all have to go through it together, but we all just go through it in different ways. So I'm always really happy to talk with others about it and see what we can come up with and how close we all are in our terms of suffering in whatever format we're stuck in.
Also, I just want to say to the channel, I know I'm talking a lot about tier and I'm playing tier, but Striker's still best deck, alright? Like, Striker's still best deck. We'll make it work.
Ray really came in and she was like, "You gotta say we're the best deck, I swear to God."
You know, it was funny because I was at the YCS and I turned to my friends and I was like, listen guys, listen. Kaleido Heart might be best card now. And everyone was like not engaged and I was like, I don't know, Kaleido Heart and then milling 8 in the deck, like, it's kind of crazy.
Oh, but yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having us on. We really do appreciate it.
Sure,
and I hope we can come back on sometime soon and talk about whatever dumpster fire is happening in the format, whenever that is.
Well, I appreciate it. And if you haven't already checked out Crushcards, definitely go over to their channel and check it out. It'll be down in the description below, as well as my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and my Metafy link. So if you want to go check that out, all down in the description below. And I thank everyone for coming out today. And thank you, Crushcards. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. And I'll catch you all in the next video.
See y'all.
Bye!